Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of Werner Swanepoel. Werner, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
It's great to have you here. Before we begin our conversation, let's take a look at today's trivia question. In 2015, the Springboks lost to two teams for the first time in their history. Name the opponents. Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below, and we'll also find out if Werner knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Werner, I want to go back to 1997 for the start of our discussion. Talk to me about how you were feeling when you got your opportunity to run onto the field for the Springboks for the first time against the British and Irish Lions.
Yeah, no, it is. I can't remember. Some guys can remember in 2000 the Free State played against the Northern Transvaal, and the score was this, and this guy stepped that guy. I can't really remember so far back, but one thing that I still remember, and even you asking me now, you get that feeling. You're so excited. You don't know if you must run, run onto the field or cry, and your heart's throbbing, in your chest, and it's just an unbelievable feeling. I think obviously you've spoken to a lot of previous Boks, and I think it's still one of the best feelings that one can have in your life is to run onto the pitch and wearing that Springbok jersey.
I'm sure it was also a pretty good feeling when you played against Australia a few weeks later and we gave them a proper hiding at Loftus. We put 61 points on the board that day. Carel Du Plessis was the Springbok coach at the time. What can you tell us about him as a coach?
Yeah, I think Carel was obviously the nice thing before I start was with him and Gert Small. Carel was the Prince of Wings, so they were also not that old when they started coaching. So we used to play touch rugby against each other, and that was also nice to, not that you want to club the Springbok coach, but just to, when he tries and run and you can touch him, as a young lighty, you watched him and Donnie Gerber and Nas, and here you get, and he's trying to step you, what a great wing it was. Yeah, Carel was, I think he was a bit, I don't want to say ahead of his time, but he came in with a lot of different ideas, different training methods. He kept us busy sometimes for a whole day, preparing and things like that. So yeah, I would say maybe a bit ahead of his time, but unfortunately, like in any sport, there's pressure, and he didn't last. And then Nick Mallett came in, and I think Nick's record speaks for itself.
As you say, Mallett came in and we went on that run, 17 test matches in a row. You went on that end-of-year tour, 1997. We beat Italy, we beat France twice in a row to win the series as well. That second test match in Paris, you actually started for the first time for the Springboks in that one. And I've had a few Boks on this show who told me that they felt that even though they made their debut coming off the bench, it was only when they started that they felt that they were truly Springboks. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I was obviously playing under the legend Joost Van Der Westhuizen, so you can't hope and pray that he gets injured. But he was also a tough player, and it wasn't back then like it is now, where coaches send you on for 30 minutes. I still don't know, 30 seconds. I still don't know how that works. Maybe it's just to give the guys caps, and one day when they're old, they can say they played 50 caps, although it was 6 minutes in total. But yeah, no, I think you never know when you get that chance. I mean, when you're wearing that Springbok blazer or the jersey, there's always pressure on you. There's always other guys that is performing, especially in South Africa, that's blessed with a lot of good rugby players. So yeah, you take every chance when it comes, and that was also, I think, the heart pounding and stuff was a little bit more when I ran onto the field, against the British and Irish Lions. But it was also a huge honor to basically put on the number 9 and run onto the pitch there against France.
You mentioned Joost Van Der Westhuizen there, legend of South African rugby. And one of the problems when you're playing Scrumhalf is that you can only have one Scrumhalf in the team. It's not like locks and flanks where you can have more than one, or props as well, wing centers. But I'm keen to hear from you because obviously you guys were teammates, but at the same time you're also rivals fighting for one position in the team. What was your relationship like with Joost?
Yeah, I mean, the relationship wasn't bad, but I think if you ask anyone, a number nine and a number two are a bit different breeds. So I never think two number nines and two number twos will ever be best friends. But look, we were there, we were competing against each other, but we were fighting for our country, So not best of friends, but there weren't any funny stuff or niggles or whatever between the two of us.
A week later, we played against England at Twickenham and we gave them quite a good beating as well. You scored your first try for the Springboks. Werner, obviously, many of us dream or dreamt of growing up and playing for the Springboks. And, obviously in someone like my cases, or in my case, it never happened because I didn't have any talent. But can you explain to us, what does it feel like scoring a try for your country?
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And especially at Twickenham, I think that's almost like one of the early grounds in world rugby, Twickenham, and to score, I can still remember there in the right-hand corner. But typically Nick Mallett, because it went blindside and James Small passed the ball to me, and I can't remember who was inside me, and there was one English player left, and I stepped him and scored in the corner. And instead of congratulating me, Nick said, "You should have passed. You can be very glad you scored." But that was just it's just an unbelievable feeling to play for the Boks, and obviously a better feeling when you score a try or two.
And we scored quite a few tries the week thereafter against Scotland, 68-10, record victory for us at the time. What was it like being part of such a dominant Springbok squad at the time?
Yeah, it was great. When Nick came in and Solly Solomons, we played an expansive game. We had Slap Chips on the wing and James Small and Percy Montgomery from the back, and we decided to play a little bit more wider, So suddenly from a nines perspective back then, where the fly off basically stood 10 meters, he stood 15. So I thought, yes, have I got this pass in me? I wanted to kick the ball to him when we started with that new tactic. But it was just great. I mean, the forwards, we can go through the team, but the pack of forwards and the depth we had there, and 17 tests in unbeaten is quite a great achievement, and I'm very glad that I've played in most of them. So especially with the big scores, I always say to people when they talk about US, I said, yeah, he played a lot more tests and he scored a lot more tries, but he never played in a game that the Boks won that far, because I made the tries. I didn't score them.
And no one can argue with that, Werner. So in 1998, I think your appearances were quite limited. Joost was fit most of the time, so he was mostly the starting Scrumhalf. But then into 1999, you played more of a role again. One of the test matches we played was early in the year. Even though it was our season, we went overseas and played against Wales in Cardiff. I think it was the opening of the new Millennium Stadium. And I think, if I remember correctly, there was still construction taking place at one of the corners. But something interesting, some of the Springboks that I've had on the show have told me, is that before the match, because obviously we know that it was a historic defeat the first time that Wales beat the Boks in a test match, before the time, Rian Oberholzer called you guys together and gave you guys a bit of a talking to, and that actually unsettled the team. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, look, I think obviously before the game, they called us everyone in, and they started talking about transformation and all those things, and not a great talk to have, because I still I think even today, the best player should play. Doesn't matter if he's pink, green, or yellow. So we had that discussion. I think it did upset us a little bit. We also thought that the roof would be closed, and it was rainy that day, and with a little bit unsettled, I think, the team. But fair play to Wales, first time in history. I don't think they hopefully will ever get it right again. But that's life, and that's the game we play. On the day, if you play test match, I mean, we saw this World Cup. We won almost all our games by 1 point. Now, who cares? We the World Cup champions at this point in time, or for two World Cups in a row. So yeah, it was bad. I think that game as well, we practiced the whole, more wide and expansive and run with the back line, and it was a bit rainy, and the more I called the forwards to make my life easier, the more they went into the ruck and said that's not the game plan. And sometimes I stood with the ball, and Bram van Straten was my fly-off, and he also went to clean the ball, and Japie Mulder was standing almost at halfway, and that was my only option. So it was a difficult test, but like I said, no excuses. We were professional back then, and everything's not always going to go well. But yeah, we bragged a bit about all those record wins that I played, but unfortunately, the bad, or the bad point of my career, if you wanted to call it that, is that I must say I lost against Wales, but that's just one of those things.
One of those unfortunate things indeed. So Werner, at the time, there was, like we were saying, it was you and Joost competing for the number 9 jersey, but David von Hesselen also emerged on the scene at the time, and he was doing quite well. At that moment, how worried were you that you might not get to go to the World Cup?
To be honest, I wasn't. I think obviously, it was also difficult. US playing most of the games and you sitting on the bench again. You don't play for your province. You're basically in the squad holding bags. And when you get an opportunity to show what you can do, I did the previous year. And there are good quality players. So, I also thought, look, we need to have depth. So it was basically me and US for 4 years, after that, or 5, I can't even remember. So from a coach's perspective, you probably need to know who's number 3, 4, 7. I mean, look at Rassie with his bomb squad. You have to have depth. Obviously, you have a bit of a worry when you sat on the bench for 3 years and you get a chance. And I always say when we played for the Cats, I had Rassie Erasmus and Andre Venter and AJ Venter and Jaco Coetzee and Andre Vos. And then when we beat the Highlanders, the papers talk about the great loss loose forwards. And then when we lose against the Blues, they said Louis Koen and Werner Swanepoel was horrible that day. So that's unfortunately, they don't mention you when you win, then it's the other guys. But yeah, it's just tongue in cheek. We always said that when we win, it's the Lucies, and when we lose, it's the 9 and 10. And both myself and Bram got dropped after the Wales test, and Dave and Gaffie started against the All Blacks. And yeah, from there, I remember my good friend Rassie, I think his foot or something was hurt, and he stood next to me, and I was obviously cut for just getting one chance after all these time that I sat on the bench. And I think that was almost the first time that I remember Tyne Randall. I think it was the first time that they made everything all black, even the week in the windows, everything was black. And then when they started the haka, they put the mic under Tyne Randall's chin, and you could just hear and see that atmosphere. And I think me and Rassie turned to each other, and we were in a way glad we're not playing. And the other thing that Rassie said, we will play next week against Australia again. So all things happen for a reason, and all for the good.
As you correctly say there, Dave and Gaffie played in that test match against the All Blacks in Dunedin, and we lost 28-0, and they were blamed for it, and correctly, they were dropped.
As I said, not to come up for them, but hey, that's the 9 and 10's life. If you win, it's everyone else, and when you lose, it's normally the 9 and 10's fault.
Exactly. And as you say, then you were back in the team the following week against the Wallabies, and we lost that one as well. Also quite convincingly, unfortunately. But I'd be very interested to hear from you, Werner, at that time, because the Boks had lost a few in a row, how much different was the atmosphere in the Springbok camp compared to a year ago when we were on that hot streak?
Yeah, look, that's life. I always compare it. If I have sales targets now, being in the real world, and you make your targets, then no one worries about if you go and play golf Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays. It's all about the performance. So obviously we had a great run and great self-belief in that 17 test, but it's like anyone, a Tiger Woods, if he hit 2 bad shots, your confidence go down a bit. And we went through a bit of a wobbly stage after that amazing run of form. And it's difficult sometimes, especially if I think you played 13 tests in a year, especially if you haven't lost for 2 years. And suddenly big hiding to the All Blacks, next game against Australia. So it's all a mind game sport, So the whole team took a bit of a knock and needed a confidence booster again.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? It's my dream, guys, to do this full time, and with a small financial contribution, you can help me realize that dream. The link and the QR code is appearing on your screen right now, and I'll also put it down in the description area for you to go and click on at a later stage if you would like to do so. And by becoming a patron, I promise there will be great benefits for members. Now let's get back to the interview. Let's move on to the 1999 Rugby World Cup. I remember hearing a radio interview with Joost Van Der Westhuizen, who was our captain for that tournament. And he said that while the guys were in Scotland for the pool stage, they didn't really feel as if they were at a World Cup. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, that was a funny feeling. I mean, when I started watching the World Cup, I can't remember, I think it was 19 or whatever in South Africa. And we all know about that World Cup and Frans and his team and, the atmosphere that was going. And obviously you expect, it's the 4 years after you playing in the 99 World Cup and you think it's going to be that hype and that spirit. And I agree 100%. I think when we played end of the year tests against Scotland, especially against Scotland, there was more vibe than with the World Cup. So it was flat, and we always think, are we at the right place? Because no one's talking rugby and there's no hype and the atmosphere and everything. So it was quite strange back then.
And you played against Spain, an unusual opponent. I think it's still today the only time the Springboks have ever played against them. Talk to me about how tricky it can be to come up against an opponent like that, especially in those days when, we didn't really have Google, YouTube didn't exist. It could be very difficult to get information on them.
Yeah, to be honest, I think obviously where we sit now in 2023 and with, everything, we don't use faxes anymore. We use emails, and we can sit and talk to each other in different countries, so technology, everything advanced and so does sports. But I think with all of the minors in a World Cup, I think there's a lot more better teams currently in world rugby, where maybe back then there was about 4 or someone that is going to be tough game. So obviously we didn't worry too much about how they play, not like a normal test against the All Blacks in the Australia and England where you study them. I think the difficult part for any World Cup, and depending on who you play, it's basically most of the guys get a chance that's not playing. The squad players get a chance to play in a game like that. And as you can't make it to the highest level if you're not competitive. And I think sometimes that competitiveness, I get my chance, to show what I can do, and sometimes it works against you, and maybe you don't play as well as a team, or maybe I'm not doing a silly thing, but there's pressure on you to try and perform because you only get one chance and not 10 tests that you can show what you're capable of. So there's always tricky games, but I think back then, Boks against Spain, there wouldn't be anyone that basically doubted that we would win that game.
And when we did indeed, your next match was against the All Blacks in that third place playoff. How satisfying was it to beat them and at least finish the World Cup on a high after we had lost in the semi-final so heartbreakingly against the Wallabies?
Yeah, it was. I think, like I always say, I can't remember dates and days and times, but, as I remember my first time running onto the field, I remember that drop goal of Stephen Larkham that put us out of the World Cup. Yeah, and that was devastating, coming off 95, winning that 17 tests in a row. I think we went into the World Cup quite confident. And unfortunately, that drop goal of Larkham put us out of the competition. But then again, no one thought France would beat the All Blacks. And, we thought, okay, we will play France in the third and fourth playoff. But like we always said, that's like kissing your sister. There's no excitement into that. You got fall, and now you have to play another test. And, there's not really something to play for apart from pride. And then the next day we playing the All Blacks. That was quite not funny, but it was good. And I mean, I came on in the second half in that test as well, and we beat the All Blacks, so went home at least with a medal. But no one asked who comes second or third, unfortunately, in life.
Unfortunately. So, Werner, speaking of beating the All Blacks, you were the first choice Scrumhalf in 2000 when we beat them at Ellis Park in what is now one of the famous Springbok wins over New Zealand. I think 46-40 was the score. Robbie Fleck scored 2 tries. Talk to me about what it's like being involved in a test match like that.
Yeah, no, look, it's always great to play against the All Blacks, and people always ask, how does it feel to face the Haka? I think, any rugby player wants to play for South Africa and face the Haka. It's so part of rugby. And at Ellis Park, that was probably one of my best grounds that I love to play on. Yeah, started that test. Flecky scored 2 tries. I scored 2 tries. It was a hell of a game. We went in front, and then they came back with a Cullen and a Umanga, but luckily we won that test, and memorable test. One of the tests that I will always remember, playing at Ellis Park and beating the All Blacks.
And then similarly, how heartbreaking was it the following week when we lost to the Wallabies in Durban with that last-minute penalty?
Yeah, no, that was also last-minute penalty. We thought we had it, and penalty at the end, and I think it was Mortlock that's I actually can remember as we talk about these games, the memory comes back. Yeah, and unfortunately in the dying seconds we lost against Australia, and we didn't win the Tri Nations.
Earlier, I asked you about Carel Du Plessis as a coach. After that Wallabies defeat, Nick Mallett was out. What can you tell us about Nick as a coach?
Yeah, look, I basically played. I think I played 1 or 2 tests under Carel, and then he was out. So basically for 4 years, it was under Nick. I had a hell of a lot of respect for him. He was one of those coaches. He didn't take nonsense. But, he had an open door policy, and and all that you want as a player is for coaches to be honest. Don't say, oh, you're my number 1 or number 2, and then when the team gets picked, you not even in the top 40. So I really enjoyed Nick. Obviously, I'm also at Super Sports, and now and again we run into each other, with the commentating things, and I just have a hell of a lot of respect for Nick Mallett, and how he coached us and how he managed everything. Apart from obviously, and we're not going to go in there, I still believe when I see him, I've got one thing that I say to him, Coach, if you didn't do the moves you did in '99 with making you as captain and bringing Bobby in, I think a lot of us would probably also be gold medal winners and say we lifted a World Cup. But everyone makes the decisions that they think would be the right ones. But a lot of respect for a guy like Nick Mallett.
And as you can imagine, I've had so many Springboks from the past on this show that have gone very much into depth on that issue. Gary Teichmann himself has been on the show to talk about that. Werner, as it turns out, that 2000 test match against the Wallabies was your last one for the Springboks. How disappointed were you that it ended there?
Yeah, I still thought, that obviously we didn't went on, as I said, like they doing now. I think I was on in total on 43 tests. Obviously, just the ones that you play count. I think I ended on 20 or 21, but it would have been nice, not necessarily to play 50, but also have that 5-0 and said I've been involved in 50 tests. But again, that's life. Harry Viljoen came in. I had a big injury. The whistle basically blew just before the what was it back then, Super 12 started, and I fractured my cheekbone. Then I just came back, and then my knee went. So it was a tough period for me, trying to get my fitness and trying to prove to Harry that I'm still the man, But it was heartbreaking, the year before you play ahead of a top guy like Joost Van Der Westhuizen, and then that year is your loss. So, but life goes on, you can't. I always say you can't sit in a corner and cry. You can't do anything about it. And obviously, I played another season in South Africa, and then I went overseas.
So who was your toughest opponent?
Yes, it's difficult. I mean, there was a lot of guys, but I think the most difficult opponent was George Gregan. Not the most physical guy, but and back then also the way Australia played with Roth and Larkham and all their switches, and they started the back passes, and I think Gregan was a master of that. So basically, to looking after a number 9. I would say that Gregan was probably my most difficult opponent I played against.
Is there a current player who you admire?
Well, look, I was a big admirer of Fourie du Plessis, when he basically took over. I think, he ticked all the boxes for a 9. He could do everything. So I quite enjoyed watching Fourie, playing a lot of tests. I thought he was really, really something special. And today, no, not really any heroes, but I think, just the way this current Springbok team, how they gel together, how they work together, and then you have a Cheslin doing this, or Andre slotting things over. So I think what I admire about this team is more the teamwork, and how Rassie and Jock, got them to gel so much and win two World Cups in a row.
Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time with the Springboks?
Oh no, like I said, there must be plenty. There's not anything maybe that I can remember now that out of the top of my head. But it was just, if you take all the years, not even with a box, but playing rugby, it was such fun, and it's something that I always wanted to do from a small lighty is to play rugby. I was fortunate enough to go through the ranks, but one knows, as you get older, it's not going to last forever. But people say to me, you would have played a lot more tests if it wasn't for US. Aren't you, isn't it a bit bad luck that you were born, earlier or later or whatever? But you know what, that my whole career was just, I enjoyed it so much, and it was just a great, I don't know how many years of my life. So yeah, a lot of great moments, a lot of sad moments. And believe me, if you keep me here for 3 hours, I can tell you a couple of funny stories. But in all, I was so grateful, and I just had such a great career, and just to be part of different teams and different opponents and meeting the guys, and it was great.
And I can tell you as well, Werner, anybody who grew up or was around in the late 90s watching that Springbok team, they fondly remember you as well, even though Joost was playing maybe most of the time. But you are very, very fondly remembered and thought of, I can tell you that much. Tell us, what are you up to these days?
After rugby, I actually fell ill when I was 29. I was, still had a 2-year contract in Worcester where I played. And I always say, and obviously the forwards that knows this by now, but I'm a clever back, not a dumb forward. So you're not always going to play rugby. Unfortunately for me, I still thought I had about 3 years left, and then I got viral meningitis, and I had to retire at 29. So that threw one a bit off guard. But long and the short, in 2000, I've actually been with Optimum Financial Services Group. Basically from 96, the current group CEO and myself became best of friends. We were there when all our kids were born, and when we got married, and he always said after rugby I must join Optimum. Then I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I'm more clever. Let's go into property, and then lost all my money in 2008 with that property shake-up that went on basically in South Africa and in the whole world. And then Lawrence came to me and he said, what you going to do now? I had 4 kids back then, and he said, come, we always said you're gonna come to Optimum and let's build something. And in 2009, where I basically joined Optimum Financial Services Group, and I'm here ever since. I probably will die here. And yeah, so we do a lot of different things: life insurance, investments, employee benefits. I run or look after the short-term insurance side, and it's nice. It's almost same as with rugby. You met a prop and you met a hooker. We spoke about them, and then you meet the head boy that's a fly half, and then you meet the little naughty guy that's on the wing or on center, on the center. So I enjoy very much what I do. I'm still, I'm a people's person, and it's nice to sit with this client, and he does mining and explain what he does, and you meet this guy and he has an ice cream shop and explain to you how he makes ice cream. So the nice thing that they always say, if you love what you do, it's not work. And I'm fortunate that I'm in this position, looking after the short-term side, meet a lot of clients, meet a lot of people. Obviously, in any business, there's a couple of headaches. The bigger you grow, the more issues there are, with personnel and whatever. But luckily, I come from a team environment. I believe the stronger the team, the stronger the individual. So I think that also quite helped me in my life after rugby. So yeah, that's what I currently do. And then obviously I'm on the Afrikaans side commentating for SuperSport. I think I've been doing that for 11, 12 years. So that's quite nice. You're not an armed critic, but you go there and for 90 minutes, Scrumhalf can talk a lot of nonsense. I hear people say I talk sense as well, so I do appreciate that. After my commentary, you get the messages. But yeah, it's just nice just still to be involved somehow with the game you love. So I enjoy the commentary as well. Everyone always asks, don't you never wanted to become a coach? That was never my thing. I think Rassie scarred me for life when he bought his own video recorder, VHS or beta, and I like to when we had a chance, I like to take a nap. And he said to me, sit next to me, look what Marshall does and look what Crip does, and here we must do that. And I said, man, I can't play rugby. I want to have a nap, please. I don't want to study the game that much. I think that's why I got scarred a bit. But never, I'm just tongue in cheek, obviously. But yeah, I never had the thing to go into coaching and become a coach. So I'm pretty happy how life turned out after rugby. It wasn't always easy, as I said, with making the wrong moves in the wrong times. And but yeah, you can't sit in the corner. You must pick yourself up and take all these things that you learn from teamwork and everything and try and put that into real life. And yeah, I mean, that was good for me to basically take that and put that into real life.
Sounds good to me. Werner, let's take a look at the trivia question again quickly. In 2015, the Springboks lost to two teams for the first time in their history. Name the opponents. Do you know the answer, Werner?
Yeah, well, if I can't remember if I did the second one that they lost. I can't remember, but I know I did the Italy test. Me and I think it was John van Rensburg, and we were almost gobsmacked when the final whistle went. We didn't know what to say to each other. So it was Italy and then obviously Japan.
Okay, so I've got this for you, Werner. So Italy is indeed right, but that was in 2016, because remember Alistair Coetzee had taken over, right? So that was 16. In 15, quite right, Japan, that was at the Rugby World Cup. And then just before the Rugby World Cup, we lost to Argentina for the first time.
See, that one I should have Googled. So that I can't even remember we lost against Argentina.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it might have been 3 or 4 defeats in a row, and Heineke Mena was under a bit of pressure there, but luckily we recovered and finished third at that Rugby World Cup in the end. But Werner, let me say, it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today, an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Like I said, always nice to, as they say in Afrikaans, belewe die verlede. So it was good to get the mind going again and taking back to 97 and all that stuff. So thanks for having me, and it was great, and good luck with all this other Springboks and guys you're gonna have a bit of a chat with.
Last time on Front Row Rugby, FC Smith was my guest. You can go and watch that video. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time we'll have another Springbok scrum half here, Dan van Zyl.